Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Why, hello there. Welcome back.
Hope you guys are staying warm.
Indeed, it's cold.
Oh, it's going to get cold. Oh, the weather outside is...
Oh, we were singing and playing guitar last night. It was quite nice.
It was fun, if not anything else.
Yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Okay, guys. As usual, please do subscribe to both channels. Each is going to have unique videos. And so, you're going to notice some trends here and some unusual things, too. It's when we get like several unusual incidents occurring that makes you start to wonder, is it a trend, right? Dozens of sailors missing after the Thai Navy ship sinks. This particular vessel was carrying 106 people when it sank in choppy waters in the Gulf of Thailand. It hits me as unusual for a Corvette-class warship to go down in rough weather. Doesn't that hit you as a little bit unusual?
It seems quite strange indeed.
So, 75 have been rescued. 31 were still in the water, the military said. At least 3 of the survivors seriously injured. And we can see this is some photos of it. And there you can see it going down. It's scary. And, you know, it's one thing when the weather is beautiful and, you know, the water is warm. It's another thing when it's really stormy. Now, in Thailand, I don't think the water ever really gets too cold. Of course, things can change. Things can really change. This is the ship. Lost both engines after water rushed in, causing it to lose stability and sink. You know, it just shows you it must have been quite a storm because this is a pretty substantial vessel here. And here you can see the rescues underway. Absolutely, it has to have been a terrifying experience. So again, we'll send our prayers out to them. This is another thing. 3 dead, 17 injured by freak wave in South Africa. So quite a bit of ways from Thailand is South Africa. And here you have at least 3 people, including child age 7 or 8, died. And over a dozen others were injured after a wave swept them into the sea at South African coastal city of Durban, South Africa. It occurred on Saturday at the Bay of Plenty. A freak wave swept people out to the sea at the, I guess that's the Queenie beachfront. Maybe it's the Queenie beachfront, which resulted in 3 dead, 17 injured, and many needed emergency services. The Bay of Plenty is one of Durban's most popular beaches. Massive rescue operation took place involving 35 lifeguards. Paramedics also attended to over 100 beachgoers, but only 17 were seriously injured. That again hits me as a little bit odd, especially when this happened. Again, these incidents, and we won't stop there. Here we have at least 36 people injured, some seriously after severe turbulence on Hawaiian's Airlines flight. 20 taken to emergency rooms after the plane encountered severe turbulence on a flight from Phoenix to Honolulu on Sunday. 11 patients were in serious condition. Honolulu Emergency Medical Services said in a statement. Among those transported was a 14-month-old child. This included serious head injuries, obviously from being tossed about. It does feel like everything is going to a whole new level. And one thing that we had gotten from the guides, because as we've shared with you guys, we've grounded and rooted for over a year and a half in one location, which we've been transient and going from spot to spot with the RV, and we're still always on the lookout. Because, again, this is going to be a time when there's going to be massive migrations of people. There's going to be massive migrations of people. Now, one of the things the guides did share again was that, they didn't want us looking any closer to the coast. And if you know where Dallas, Texas is, and again, we're not too far from Dallas. We're, up in the corner there, where Arkansas comes together, and hundreds of miles, a couple hundred miles inland from the coast, but they just didn't want us looking any closer to the coast. Not that there's going to be massive tsunamis or not, but just you might have more regular events as well as, possible events that can manifest when that WW hashtag number 3, really happens.
Mm-hmm. Just a lot more sopping wet things that, you could probably do without. So, but everybody has to, gauge their own situation and see what the environment is talking to them about.
Yeah, because everybody is in a unique situation, and sometimes we come into life, and you might have questions raised and say, well, why did this person die so young, or that person die so young? And not that you're going to die if you're by the seashore, but just saying, a lot of times we don't see the purpose, when the purpose is to basically help others grow or be an example, or in many cases, it's also related to karma. There is such a thing as karma. And right now we're kind of at the end of a cycle. So we're working through a lot of karma that has been, ongoing for lifetimes.
Yeah, tying up a lot of loose ends. Some weird things can happen in your life, but always rest assured that it has very, very deep purpose.
Yet another large-scale fire at an oil and gas field in Russia. Yes. Another. Thousands of square meters were localized quickly. No victims. 5 people were injured. So nobody died, but 5 people were injured. Fire at the technological installation. People wrote they heard an explosion on social media. It hadn't been officially reported at the time of this article, which was from last night. Irkutsk Oblast, again, this is more towards the west. The east, I should say, the east. Again, we've seen so many unexplained fires at, anything and everything to do with energy and food. And what seems to be happening lately is a lot of meteorite fireballs, whatever they are, coming in, actually making ground contact. Now, this is something that we should watch, because the guides have shared that in the future there's going to be 3 impacts to be aware of. The last time they spoke about this, I think, I gotta say, it felt like it was more than a year ago. It was maybe 18 months ago. And they were giving us the impression it was a little bit farther out, but we'll have to look into that again, see if we're getting closer to this. But they did say there would be 3 objects that came in that we would have to be noticing and cautious about, and that would be a time when certainly you wouldn't want to be by any oceans, because if a meteorite hits the ocean, obviously that's not a good scenario. And the fact is, again, when we look to the Younger Dryas period that so many have pointed out, and so many people are on board with the understanding that there's these massive cataclysmic resets that happen at about 12,000 year intervals, thereabouts. But the thing is, there's other resets in between those. And, the question is how often and how severe. But the big ones, the big ones, not to say that, again, starting back from scratch with maybe 20% of the population isn't big as it is. And, this could happen much, much more often than we realize. But there is something to do with our location that we go through in space that brings us into a zone that is definitely dangerous.
Mm-hmm. It's a natural consequence, and even though I do think certain things happen more often than every 12,000 years, there's some really, really huge ones. And I don't know that we're that far away right now.
Meteor explodes over Zhejiang. Broken windows, street lamps reported. Meteorites found in China. So a very bright fireball exploded over this province around 1000 UTC on December 15th. Parts of the object survived the entry and were later recovered. Locals reported broken windows and street lamps. Many locals in Genjois witnessed the bright light flashing through the night sky, followed by a loud boom. The meteorite did fall on our village. It smashed on the cement road at the door of a farmer's house, and then smashed a pit that seemed to be about 6 to 7 centimeters, or 2.4 to 2.7 inches deep. Fortunately, no one was hurt. As we see, and there's videos here. According to the villager, the piece of meteorite they saw is about the size of a goose egg. It's flat, black, and dense. Another villager said she heard a loud noise that shook her windows, adding that some villagers reported their windows and several street lamps were broken. Several suspected meteorites have been handed over to the local government departments for investigation and verification. According to the local media, one of the suspected meteorites is 3.1 inches long, weighs 3.2 kilos, or about 7 pounds, so that is pretty dense. As you can see, a picture here. Now, what we got from a different one before was that it was actually a ship that was destroyed and came down. And I know it's a lot for some people to believe, but probably 99% of you guys know. Again, you do understand there's always been extraterrestrials, and this is just par for the course. And we have all the legends of the wars of the gods over our heads. There's these universal myths of these gigantic battles with beings with very, very technologically advanced equipment.
We do have treaties coming to a close, and I believe it's 2025. So we definitely have some things going on above us that we cannot see. Galactic wars are a real thing, and this is what it feels like. It feels like we're getting pieces of ships.
Okay, so, and I don't know if you remember exactly, but somebody had asked before when we mentioned that, they said, who's the treaty between?
There's just some things in life that we are not allowed to know. I mean, that's part of the treaty. It's like, what are we allowed to know? And it definitely feels like there's a push for humans to be able to advance and have these deeper understandings so that we can evolve. So that part I can tell you. The other information I'm not being given right now.
And I do remember when you were under, now that we're bringing it up, that was part of it. Part of it was how much will humans be allowed to know? And, because the controllers that are here don't want you to know anything officially. They want you to think that the Earth is flat and that we are at the center of the universe. There's no other life forms out there. And have a nice day. That's their point of view. They don't want you realizing that the ultimate controllers are not based on Earth. So, these are some treaties that have happened because, again, there's been massive galactic warfare going on. And we are in basically the first stages of lower 4D. So many people can recognize time is totally different. It seems like time has sped up. It seems that everything is just different. There's kind of a different texture to life and to reality, so to speak. And again, we're returning to dream time. And so we're going into that 4D area. And 4D is where most of the battles take place.
And I always have to bring up, ever since you showed a picture of that music note, because people say, well, if we're in 3D, but we have to go up to go to 4D, then how can that mean we have more dense beings and dense materials around us? And if you look at a music scale, it just totally explains everything for you, because with those notes you have to actually drop down to go up. I know it's difficult to understand, but that was a question that I had, and through Mike studying music, he was able to find this information. And I don't know if he has that one specific picture right now, but boy, it really helped a lot if you look at those octaves and how they're laid out. So maybe we'll get lucky, and I shouldn't have thrown that at him, but I can tell you.
Well, it's the way it repeats, So if you think about it, like on the keys on a piano, you find the middle C and you kind of go from there. And again, we can have the same notes just on different octaves. So as you play up a guitar neck, you can you can on the low E string go over and get a B note, and then you could go and jump over to the B string and play the same pattern, but they're coming out at different octaves. So this is basically how it works as far as reality. And when we look at one of the things that Cindy's given me lately to really grasp is, again, what is our whole reality? And it's again light and sound and the interaction in between.
It is light and sound coming together, creates form. And when you add frequency to that, that depends on what kind of form are you going to be involved in. What can you see? So if we're in a 3D reality, we can go, if you look at music notes, you can go up, 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 but then you drop down to go to the low 4. So you can see there's definitely that drop down. And because of the frequency or the music and information coming together to create form, we can see more beings and we can actually be in the thick of it. So that's a really exciting time.
Yeah, so here is a chart that gives you 5 standard octaves and the reference to color. Because again, we only see a tiny, we see like less than 5% of what is. Less than 5% of what is. We can only see the smallest scale. We're living on our own little octave, so to speak. Yet there's all these other octaves with beings on them all the time. So yeah, many beings from our myths and legends are not extraterrestrials. They're here, but they live on 4D Earth all the time, or they live on 5D Earth. And when we go into a golden age, we're on 5D. All of a sudden, we find all these beautiful benevolent beings. But the thing too is, doesn't mean there's no aliens. Yeah, absolutely there are. There's life all over the place. Every star you see up there, the majority of them have planets circling them. And of that, life is the norm. It's not the exception, because everything is created for consciousness to explore.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, it's all for exploration. And in so many of our history books, and even if you look in the real old Bibles, they have so many different beings, and they talk about a time when there's all these different beings around us. And, that was a time when we were going through a frequency situation where we could all kind of be at one.
And we're going to share with you a little bit later, one of those beings that we have around us on all the time, daily basis. And he is we'll get there. Yeah, anyway, record snowfall causes chaos in Moscow. Now, Moscow and snow, they should be very used to snow. I mean, it's cold. It's always snowing up in Moscow, right? I mean, when does the snow stop in Moscow? My guess would be May, typically, maybe June even. I mean, what do you get? 3 or 4 months where it's not covered in snow? But what they have now, they haven't seen in 80 years. 80 years. So, this winter is starting out to be something for the record books. And then we had the Serbian president saying, it's next one. The next one's going to be the bad one. Ooh, yeah, the next one, we might find ourselves also in a global conflict by the time that comes around, as it does feel, I have to share with you guys, it does feel that scenario is going to come to pass in probably within 2 years, I feel, and I guess, that wouldn't be a shock for most when we see the world situation. But, again, what we're seeing is unprecedented in these modern times. Snow piling up at unprecedented rate in Japan, measuring it by the foot. And look at the blast that's coming to the U.S. here. Look at the blast, not that, this. Watch this one come down. It's whoa, that just feels so, That just doesn't feel normal. That doesn't feel normal. Again, when you look to the real, you can see the scale here. This is when we get colder. So the magentas, the pinks and stuff, and the purples, very, very cold. Look at that come just blasting all the way down into Mexico, going right through Texas. It's going to be brutal. I was looking at our forecast high, and in a few days it's going to be like 20 for a high, and we're much colder now. You get changeable weather. My first visit to Dallas was like that. It was in February. I mean, that is just woo. Hang on tight, guys. It's going to be life-threatening cold. And again, if the grid goes out, then we're absolutely in a serious condition. Now, where we are, I really think we can make it with just bundling up. But when you get these, unusual temperatures that are like maybe 30 degrees or more below normal, that's going to be challenging for anybody. So yeah, this is a massive cold wave. It's gripping East Asia, and it's also just breaking all-time snow records across Japan, Moscow. And it's cold over in the UK too. Our brother Dave, I check in with him on a regular basis. Kazakhstan City buried in 30 hours. Tasmania as cold as December day in 50 years. The UK Met Office is escalating snow and ice warnings. America's historic Arctic blast draws nearer. Yeah, I was looking at southern Missouri. It looks like their daytime high is going to be mid-single digits, below zero at times. This is brutal.
Mm-hmm. I know, and we have to say a huge thank you to Mama Jan, because she has set us up with some really yummy coffee and some nice warm clothes, and we have backups to our backups. And I was going to say one thing that we have somewhere are those little packets that you warm up and you put them in your gloves and in your socks, in those silver blankets. So in case you don't have a way to heat things, you have a way to have things in your gloves and in your socks that can help keep you warm. Back up to the backups.
Yeah, and you don't have to spend a ton too, because I've gotten 2 propane heaters that are portable, and so we do have propane. We have 2 portable propane heaters. We have 2 portable electric heaters, which honestly, one of those small ones kept us warm in New Mexico. We didn't have any other heat. That was it. And we also have a small tent stove that is portable with about 8 to 10 feet of pipe. So, I've been thinking about putting that out in the porch as I'm working on the porch. And, again, none of those items cost more than $150. So they were all, just to have layers, backup to backup to backup, is a good way to go. Again, we have our camper still, so we could always cook with propane in the camper, in the kitchen, in the camper. But then we have, separate propane heaters and, camping cookers. And then we also have like a big grate that you could cook on top of if you want to build a wood fire too. So, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be, we could see that. I mean, the writing's on the wall. If we don't notice that things are going to be challenging now, our head's truly in the sand. Multiple stations in Madrid are forced to close due to flash flooding as Storm Ephraim batters Spain as well. We've seen this, and when you think about the cold water inundating, it's just so much worse. Absolutely down in the subway stations there, the train stations. Taking a look, we'll get a new drought monitor coming up shortly. But this is what we're looking at. Remember, California has declared a state of emergency. We can see the worst of it really seems to be still in Kansas, in Oklahoma, in Nebraska. But again, anything that's this yellow and up is basically telling us that we're in a dry situation. The darker, the worse it is. So, here again, we have record flooding, we have record storms, we have record drought, and here you see the Austrian vice president is saying that Russia is doing better than the EU. It's interesting too that was all brought up because, as we've said, this is all about just switching operational headquarters, so to speak. And everything has kind of backfired on the EU and NATO, and as far as sanctions and things like that. But again, what's happening? It's really just a case where, again, the average people are the ones that go through the trials and the tribulations. El Paso mayor finally declares state of emergency after massive invasion of migrants. Yeah, there's more people flooding the border every single day than ever. And again, the White House just basically ignores it. Well, it's because, again, we understand there's a bigger purpose, but now we're getting that cold blast coming in. A lot of these people are coming from areas that never get that type of cold blast. So, for them themselves, it's going to be very, very trying and challenging. And we understand that many of these people are strong and hardy and perhaps have other jobs in mind for when they get the go signal, but then many of them are also just typical people fleeing one area, helping to find something a little bit better. The grass is greener. And over in New York City, the mayor starts freaking out over an impending wave of illegal migrants. And the situation is the same in Europe too. And actually, there's been all sorts of conflict breaking out in Ireland, in many different European countries, between all the people that are flooding in and the people that are there. So this happens all the time, guys. This happens all the time. This is part of the systematic breakdown of one society after another, perhaps at intervals that are only maybe 100, 200 years apart, 300 years apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they just have so much going on, and at some level, it's very orchestrated, and it just compromises everyone. But there is somebody that knows exactly what is going on.
Nuclear fusion incinerates climate crazies. Your attention, please. This century's scheduled performance of the apocalypse has been postponed indefinitely. Ladies and gentlemen, your tickets will be refunded at the box office. Why? Because this person is saying because, again, they've come out and told us we've achieved nuclear fusion. Yeah, well, that's been around for a very long time. That's the bottom line. And many of you have understood this, that there's technologies out there like free energy. That's not something that's just a fantasy. No, it's real. You can't get patents to go through on these things. They get shuffled under, they get bought out, they get stifled. There's plenty of brilliant minds on the planet that could really come up with solutions to our problems, but the reality is you're coming up against a brick wall. They don't want it. Why? Because the status quo is what maintains their power.
And they love their power. They're not going to give that up for anything. So, when you see these things come out and they're making these comments, it all has purpose. It all has purpose wrapped around making sure that they stay in control. And the more we can learn, through magnets, through crystals, there's just these basic things that we have that we can put to use. And they are always collecting energy. There is no reason why we have to be under some kind of superior force that, allots people a certain amount of energy. It's just totally, it's redonkulous.
Love that word.
Yes, me too.
Silver registered silver ratio falls to 11.1%, lowest in 22 years. What this is talking about is that it's being pulled from the market. We had that discussion with David Devine months ago. And he was saying, if you notice it, they're just pulling it. They're pulling it. And what happens is when they go to introduce the CBDCs, it'll probably be just a replay of Roosevelt. Okay, everybody, you got to turn in your silver now. You got to turn in your gold now. One of our beloved family members who has a very, well, by our standards, a massive farm and is very, very productive, she's got to list everything she's producing. Why? Oh, well, we're just doing it to safeguard the public's health. Yeah, no, you're doing it to maintain your own wealth. You're doing it to make sure that you're the only game that there is.
I know, and make sure they're the only game in town, and they're the ones that hold all the cards, and they're the ones that are going to make sure, who gets what. But most of all, they're going to make sure that they get the most of everything.
Absolutely. So what we also have seen is we've seen that China has been buying up tons of gold. And again, they also have all the grain as well as Rama's bargain, as some people went by the house. More than 42,100 species are threatened with extinction. That is 28% of all assessed species. What's new? I mean, this is what this planet goes through, is one massive extinction after another. The only time that we get out of this is when we're fully out of the Kali Yuga. And not just the Kali Yuga, because again, the Kali Yuga, if we're looking at the cycles of the Yugas, and we haven't gotten definitively, because when you look at time, I want to say that time is not necessarily a fixed thing. I think it's relative, and I think our perspective on time changes depending on what our density is. Would you agree with that statement? Okay. So everything changes. Everything changes. Honestly, guys, I got like 6 other videos lined up. We just can't get to them. There's so much that we want to get out, but we have been very, very busy with many other things, from preparation to working on people energy-wise, as ascension is not an easy thing to go through. But yeah, again, these resets are always happening. Time it really is something that is more pliable than we think, and it is related more to our perspective and where we are density-wise.
Mm-hmm. It's a hard, complicated thing to understand, and moving into alignment, changing your vibration can be quite a painful thing, especially if you've been knocked down out of your alignment, so it definitely takes time.
And we have all these little nuggets that are always coming through. Ancient gold working toolkit from burial near Stonehenge revealed. Yeah, 4,000-year-old gold working toolkit among the grave goods from an imported Bronze Age burial near Stonehenge. Again, our history is right beneath our feet. It's not what we've been taught in books. In Turkey's Gedikaya cave, a stone figurine was discovered inside a 16,500-year-old votive pit. Yeah, toys have been discovered that are tens of thousands of years old, little dolls. We never really, at the core, we don't necessarily change so much. But again, our vehicles change. People ask all the time, so did the Anunnaki create us? They didn't create us. They modified the vehicle that we are inhabiting. It's a big difference. The body is a vehicle, just like your car is a vehicle to get around. The body is a vehicle. You are not the body. You are consciousness having a human experience. You're not even always human. That's the thing to understand. The eternal aspect of us is consciousness itself. So we are having a human experience. The guides always come through and they'll say, well, we can give you this much because we don't want to interfere with your human experience. So in reality, you're not even really truly human. You're just human temporarily.
Mm-hmm. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you are simply always you. It's just we identify being human because that's the body that we're in. So it's only natural. But even when we astral travel, we are always still us, but we're not in our body. I mean, it can be kind of a mind bender sometimes.
Absolutely. And Tiny Flakes tell a story of tool use 300,000 years ago. Yes, sharpening tools 300,000 years ago. And again, the farther back we go, in some ways, the more advanced we become. Certainly spiritually, because again, we're not under the influences of this dark AI. So while the cycles of the yugas is a natural thing, the dark AI that we are battling right now is not a natural thing, and it's exactly the opposite. Comet impacts could bring ingredients for life to Europa's ocean. Yeah, there's already life in Europa's ocean.
There's so much life everywhere. And people are starting to perceive and understand and know and at a rate that it's really difficult for the controllers to control. And there will come a time when people break out of that control grid.
So the Egyptian ring here, featuring God of Fun, discovered in ancient burial, mysterious burial from ancient Egypt, contains gold jewelry, including 3 rings. One featuring Bess, the God of Fun, and a necklace. Yep. Archaeologists in Egypt have unearthed stunning gold jewelry, including a ring depicting the God of Fun in a burial that's more than 3,000 years old. The burial is located in the northern part of ancient city of Akhenaten, modern-day Amarna, about 186 miles south of Cairo. And so this is basically in the 1353 to 1336 BC area. And that's Akhenaten, very, very famous pharaoh who tried to change Egypt's polytheistic religion, they say, by focusing it around the worship of Aten, the sun disk. So he moved Egypt's capital city from Thebes in modern-day Luxor to the newly desert-built city of Akhenaten, yes. These words, it's going from one language to another all the time that gets you. Ultimately, his religious reforms were undone by his son, Tutankhamun, and the new city was abandoned. So interesting, one of them had a engraved image of Bes, who was known as the God of Fun. The God of Fun. He's depicted as a dwarf who, in addition to playing music and having fun, was also protecting women during childbirth. And so he was called on a lot for that. Well, it's interesting too, because, Bess is an interesting character, and you might be wondering, why is Cindy laughing so much? Because, this is a depiction of Bess.
Yeah.
And, the reality is we've worked with him before in the past. And so he is a heck of a guy. I enjoy Bess.
The first time he introduced himself, he showed himself as a lion face, and then he said, okay, you'll recognize this. And he stuck his tongue out at me. He was just so comical. And I didn't know who it was because, like I told you guys, I don't get names, but I had told Mike. And then we were looking it up, we were looking at this lion with his tongue sticking out, and here's Bess. It's Bess, and he's just laughing and laughing and laughing. So this is really curious because Bess came to us. He is serving a form of karma. He's serving a form of karma. He is here to help us. He is here to uplift us. And he's definitely here to work through Mike and myself to just kind of uplift things. But you want to think, well, what did he do? What did he do? He is very helpful. And sometimes when you're in a position to help people, you actually can overhelp them. You can assist them into their own demise. And that's where he was so tied into helping people. He did do that. And this is his choice. This is what he wants to do. He wants to balance out that karma because he is going to move to another stage of, and I'll call it godhood. His way of doing things is very fun, and it's enlightening, and it's happy, and it's chirpy, and he's here to help send. So many times you guys are feeling Bess when we're talking. You can feel Bess's energy. If you get a giggle, get a laugh, we might just be channeling him.
Yeah, this is kind of how it works. And so here's a depiction of him, and yes, that is his tongue coming out. And this is a carving in Egypt. And so he's with us all the time, and he's always helping us and guiding us and working with us. And he's basically on 4th density. So just for you guys to understand, he again, got into this karmic issue because he did too much. So, again, he kind of always wants to help. And sometimes we can do too much. And sometimes I wonder if we say too much. Man, I probably am guilty of saying too much too often. Maybe there's some things I should keep a little bit quieter, but it's like, you feel like you want to help people understand the bigger perspective. Now, Cindy was talking about godhood and God. Now, who is best? Really, who is he? Well, he's an extraterrestrial. That's who he is. That's what he is. He's not from here. He comes from the Orion system, and some might equate Orion with negative entities, but there are good entities. Again, it's the same thing. You find people that have a service to others, persuasion and way about them here on Earth, and then you find others that are in service to self only, pretty much here on Earth. It's the same thing with other systems. So he comes from the Orion system.
Mm-hmm. And he really is. He really is the god of fun. I mean, he can take about any situation and turn it around. And I mean, he'll show himself. He'll show the funniest faces inside of my mind when Mike is talking about something, and I'm just forced to laugh and then kind of speak it out loud what's going on. And that's how he lightens us. He does it often.
And here's a clue that he's not from here. He's got wings in this depiction. So, when you see beings with wings, that they're telling you that they came here from somewhere else. They came here from somewhere else. They had the ability to fly, so to speak. And again, right now in 4D, when you're in a 4D existence, again, we can astral project. When the physical body's gone, we're pretty much always in a 4D unless we ascend up to 5D existence. And so these are all depictions of Beth's. And by the way, the Pentagon clarifies position on aliens. There's no evidence of extraterrestrials landing or crashing on our planet at any time. Oh, okay. Sorry, Bess, you're not real. You're just a figment of our imagination, which some people would say. But, we know better. And again, all those statues to Bess, thousands and thousands of them, depictions. He was in some ways one of the very most popular, quote unquote, deities. And again, Isis, whose Egyptian name is Aset, and Osiris, Osir, they're not from here. They're from Sirius, the Sirius system. And, again, these are extraterrestrials.
They're totally different entities. And one day we're going to be working with beings that we know to be completely different, too. It just cracks me up, they come on and they say, oh, well, we've researched everything and there's no such thing and no evidence of extraterrestrials. Okay, we can all breathe easy now. Thank God. I mean, to think that we are here by ourselves, right?
Yeah, another way of looking at it is you can say that at this moment in time, there's probably 25 to 35% of the people that are incarnated right now on Earth that are extraterrestrials having earthly experiences, as they've had incarnations in other planets and other places than Earth. So yeah, many of us are not from Earth originally, not at all. No, we're here right now temporarily trying to help out the people that are on the planet get rid of this dark system. And so here we see what's obviously a building underneath this current house, this current road. And, this is talking about mud flood. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean this is one universal mud flood. This is part of what I've been picking up, and I think Cindy gets it too, is you could have a lot of these localized things happening. Like right now there's mud floods underway in some areas. And, again, Florida is rebuilding after the last hurricane. What happens if we get several more, and what happens if, again, there is another shifting of the poles, and you're going to get massive inundations. At some point there will be a shifting of the poles. We feel that is still a good 20 years away, maybe a little bit more. But right now, obviously, the biggest thing as we look at some of the technology of old, how far away was it from the technology we have now? That's an interesting question, is it not? These cycles, everything comes back around again and again and again. And here you see some baby pandas having fun in the snow. Again, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Well, let's just play in the snow and enjoy it as much as we can.
I know those little guys are so lucky. They don't need to put on a jacket. They don't need to put on gloves. They just go out and be. They just go out and have fun. And, yeah, we have to throw on our snowsuits and stuff, but boy, is it worth it. Take the kids out, see who can make the most in the prettiest snow angels, and just enjoy.
And as always, guys, thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without your support over there. Also, do check out EvolutionaryEnergyArts.com. Thanks for your patience if you reached out to us. We tried to get back within a day or two when somebody wants to schedule an appointment. And so after this video, that's what we'll be doing, getting back to the people that have reached out to us to schedule appointments. And again, the email is evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com. You might find the Proton Mail address on some older videos. I've taken it off because it was just flooded with spam, and that was such a disappointment, as Proton Mail is supposed to be, well, it's something you pay for, right? But no, it wasn't any better. It was, in fact, just totally spammed. And do check out Medicinal Foods as well. There's a link on every video to take you to these guys. Use coupon code EEA and you get 10% off. It does support the channel. Much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.